Jill here with Whispering Willow Farm, and welcome back. I just shared with you guys some of the beauty that is taking place right now in my high tunnel. I shared some b-roll of our lettuce, our spinach. There's so much life. You guys can see behind me. There is a lot of goodness going on here. In today's video, I am extra excited about because one, it's a question I get asked almost weekly, and two, I have a solution to the problem. So today we're going to talk about succession planting, how to overcome the overwhelm. We're actually going to move into my greenhouse and start some of my lettuce and spinach and kind of talk through what I am using and how I am really just not being overwhelmed by succession planting. But before we dive into all of that, I want to hit on what succession planting is. Maybe you're that new beginner gardener and you don't know what it is. For us, we are succession planting because it's really how we can utilize growing food year round in a small space. Even if you have ample amount of space and you still want to grow food year round, you're going to have to start things more than once. So let's take a tomato, for instance. If you start your tomato seeds once, you transplant them outside, they produce your fruit, you pull them up, you're done, and then that's when your season's over, then you're still spending a good portion of the year buying tomatoes. And so for us, we figure out what are those things that we can succession plant. Now there are some varieties that we are limited by the elements around us called weather, and so we're able to get 2 successions of tomatoes in, 2 successions of cucumbers in, and we are able to grow those through the frost. But we know during those cold winter months, we're having to rely on some of the stuff that we've stocked up through fermenting and canning. That is something to be mindful of too. But there are certain things like our lettuce and our spinach that we are able to grow year round. We're growing this in the dead of summer and we're growing this in the dead of winter. And so we know that we're not having to go and buy these things. And for me, if you're limited on bed space too, succession planting is great because you can have things started in your greenhouse or maybe in your house if that's how you're starting your seeds. And when your first round is done, you're able to just, replant out that second round. So you guys can see here, I've got, lettuces of different sizes out in my bed right now, and that's because some of these were transplanted out sooner than others. But I wanted to make sure that when I was harvesting lettuce, I still had lettuce that could be harvested a week after and a week after, and so on and so forth. And so succession planting, that's what it is. It's staggering your plantings in intervals of 7 to 21 days, and essentially when you're harvesting one, you're transplanting out another, which means you're starting it. And some of these things you can direct seed as well, but what you would do in that instance is, when you sowed out your first round of cucumbers, you would want to make sure before that first round of cucumbers was done, you were direct seeding that second round to where you were yielding fruit on the second round before your first round was going to be done. A common question I get asked a lot is, well, how do I know when my plant's done? I don't wait until my plant's done. I really kind of base this specifically off my tomatoes, my peppers, my cucumbers, those worm-loving things. I figure out when my estimated first frost is, and then I know that, all right, if I want to get a round of cucumbers in or a round of tomatoes, what's that days to harvest, that days to maturity, and I'll make sure that my first round I pull out and have my second round rocking and rolling, just to kind of play with the different frost dates. And so I know that this is confusing. I've probably already said something in the first 5 minutes of this vlog that has you scratching your head thinking, oh my gosh, I'm so overwhelmed. And I get it. Succession sowing was one of the things that took me the longest to fully understand and realize how to utilize it to its fullest potential. And once I tapped into that magic and I started really implementing it, I can show you. We started reaping the benefit of that because it is early May and my tunnel has been rocking and rolling for a while now. Now, if you are not growing in a tunnel, every single thing I have in my high tunnel right now could have been sowed outside months ago. Oh, hi little bird. So let's head to the greenhouse, let's start some seeds, and let's talk about succession planting, how you can overcome the overwhelm and really just maximize your gardens and your farms to the fullest. So let's get started. All right, so today we're going to start lettuce seed. We start all of ours in these 72 cell trays from Bootstrap Farmer. They're my favorite because your start can get that perfect size. I have tried trays that are bigger than the 72. So I've done like the 200s, I've done some in the 100s. and they just dry out super quickly, and they're not super mature starts when we move them out. And so I have found that I do like these the best. I'll have a link for them down below. And so we are starting lettuce and spinach and sunflowers and a lot of different things on a weekly rotation. And what that means is that I am starting these seeds every single week. For lettuce, we're starting 160 heads of lettuce. We're starting 400 sunflowers every single week. We're starting 160 different spinach varieties. I like to just keep all mine in these plastic totes and name them, especially the ones that need to go in the freezer, so all of your lettuce and your spinach. And so this is what we start with. At a few days old, we've got starts that look like this. At a week or so, we have starts that look like this. Then we'll have, you know, each of these are moving out continuously. So I always have whatever I'm succession sowing at different stages, right? Different stages of growth in the greenhouse as seedlings, different stages of growth outside, meaning that since I've staggered all these plantings and these seedings, I am always having food to harvest. So what I've found in my experience is, one, maybe if you are a beginner, you do have that lack of understanding as far as what is succession planting, really. But then for most people who have gardened for a while and know about gardening, it's less about what succession planting is. You kind of quickly can wrap your head around, oh yeah, you're staggering your plantings, you're staggering your seeding dates. That way you always have things that are going in the ground and you always have food that you're harvesting. But then, for me, what I personally struggle with, and what I feel like many other people struggle with, is knowing how to input that based off of your location, knowing how much to start, how often, and knowing all the other steps that are involved. And so I was at that place. You guys know I have a spreadsheet for everything. And so I'd worked on a spreadsheet, but it wasn't as streamlined as it could have been. There were a lot of things I felt like I was questioning. And so I called one of my friends who is a market farmer, and he is in with all the other market farmers. And I was like, I need you to do me a solid. I need you to look at my spreadsheet, and I need you to help me figure out what I'm doing wrong and how I can make this easier on myself. And he just laughed and he said, Jill, I'm about to change your life. And I thought he was joking, and quite literally, this has changed my life for someone who's done this for a really long time. And so he introduced me to a planting calendar called Seed Time. Our friends Paul and Edwin created it. They come from farming backgrounds. They work with a lot of market farmers, and essentially it's based off of your location. I'm actually going to go through and show you guys some footage of what mine looks like. All right, once you create your Seed Time account, you'll log in. The link to create your account is going to be down below. You can see I've got all this stuff written here. This is for all of my lettuce successions, but you're going to add a crop. You're going to go in and select your variety. So let's do carrots. Let's find where the carrots are. Here we go. Go in and choose your variety. I'm going to do the Bolero because that is one that we are growing. Label it. This is going to be for the high tunnel. You can customize your color. This is just another way to stay organized. But then you go to your advanced setting. And this is where you can really put in all of your information. Are you transplanting? Are you direct seeding? It's going to tell you if it's a warm or cool season crop, days to maturity, 75, and you schedule it. And what happens is it's inputted all of this right here in orange. This is the day I need to be prepping my beds. This is the day I'm cultivating carrots. These are the days that I'm harvesting carrots. It goes on and tells you when to direct seed them. So all that question of when do I direct seed, when do I prep beds, when do I cultivate, when I harvest, it automatically inputs that based off of the location that you put in and the varieties that it is that you chose. You can go to your task list over here, and it's going to break everything up for you. You can see mine are kind of overdue because I don't ever check them off, but it tells you when you need to be seeding, when you need to be preparing your beds, when you're transplanting them out or direct seeding, and when you're harvesting them. And so it's got this task list for you, and essentially it is taking all of the guesswork out for you when you do this. You can go back to your calendar, you can add multiple different locations. Where mine says greenhouse production, you can add new calendars for different areas of your garden. And if you have this set up on an automated succession, let's say you never want to end it, it will just keep putting that over month after month when you need to be harvesting, direct seeding, cultivating, etc. And so you put in your location, you put in what varieties you're growing, which is great because for me, they've got all of the Johnny seeds that I'm growing already in there. And when you put in your, location in your growing zone, it tells you exactly what you need to start, when you need to start it, how often you need to start it. But then my favorite thing, this for me was like what sealed the deal. It'll tell me, my little reminder will show up, hey Jill, on this day you need to be starting your foundation collection Salanova. Okay, cool. And then I'll get another reminder on my task list saying, all right, this day you need to start prepping this bed to get ready for it to be transplanted out into, which is huge. And then it will send me another reminder and it'll say, hey, now you need to transplant your stuff. This is when you need to start. And you can go on, and how I have mine set up is I have it set up on our existing tunnel, the new tunnel, the raised bed, and I even have the cottage garden. So you can make your own locations and you can color coordinate them, which for an organization person, I really like that. That really tickled my fancy. So I've got it all color coordinated and I have these things that I'm doing succession, and it took all of the guesswork out. I literally just had to plug and play my location, come up with where it's being planted at, high tunnel 1, high tunnel 2, raised bed garden, cottage garden, and then it did the rest of the work for me. It took out every single bit of the overwhelm. And so for me, this was huge. You can set up your account for free. And so I have been playing with this account for months now. I've been going in, adding all my stuff. It is what I have been using to figure out, I had a great base knowledge on when to start things. It was, when do I need to get beds ready? When do I need to flip beds? When do I need to do that next succession and that next succession? And when do I need to go from my, spring varieties to my summer varieties that can handle more heat? And when do I need to go to those winter varieties? There's so many different things you can do. And so I asked Paul and Edwin if they would do a webinar with me to give my viewers access to understand this tool, because it is something I get asked so much and so often, and it has literally just helped me out so much and streamline things that I know it will do the same for all of you guys. And so I'd love it if you join. It's a free webinar. You can, if you missed it, you can get the link and replay it. It's just a tool I've utilized. You can set up your account for free. They do have a paid for option that has other incentives. You can buy seeds through there. There's different layouts. There's a lot of other things, but you can get all of this for free as well. And so if you want to join me for that webinar with Paul and Edwin explaining what this is and how to best utilize this planting calendar, because it saved me so much time, it's going to be Sunday night, May 7th at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. I will have a link to sign up to that webinar down in the description. So you guys know, I wouldn't tell you about something if I didn't truly believe in it. Nathan and I have been using this planting calendar since back in the winter. We've been using it for a while now. Right when that came out, I was like, I want to trial it. I want to see what this is about because I really need some help. And it's helped so much. It's also great too, because when I'm out of town, I can tell Nathan, hey, here's the task list of what needs to get done, where it needs to go, and he can look on the calendar and see based off of location and zone what all needs to get done on the farm when I'm not here. And so that's huge. And so if you are wanting to implement succession planting, you want to grow food year round, you are just lacking knowing what those steps are. When do I rip out one thing to put in another thing? When do I rotate beds? What does this look like? This does it all for you. It takes out all of the guesswork. You just plug in your information and you're ready to go. And so if that's something you think you'd be interested in, I'd love if you join me on this free webinar with them, just learning about it more. I know that was super beneficial to me to have someone walk me through it. I did a lot of their online classes, I guess, to really kind of understand it, and thankfully I had someone who was already using it to kind of walk me through that. But it's been a game changer, and I think it can be a game changer for you too. Succession sowing, growing food year round, doesn't have to be overwhelming, and I find if you just implement those few little things, you realize oh man, that was it. That was the key to the castle that I needed, and I've been working on trying to get in for a while. So I do think it'll be super beneficial. It's helped me out a lot. I think it'll help you out a lot too. But I do want to say, if you are thinking about succession planting, start with something simple. I did not just dive in one day and decide I was going to grow food year round. It was something that I gradually worked towards. You know, year after year, I would add on a few more things. I'd say, all right, well, maybe I can get in 2 rounds of flowers instead of 1. And then I realized, well, lettuce is one of those super easy things, especially during the summer. If you're growing these varieties that are heat tolerant, they're going to grow in like 20-something days. You know, it's 20-something days for your maturity. That's huge. And so knowing that you can switch out varieties to get a yield faster, but then of course in the winter time, it's going to take a little bit longer for that to grow out. But don't try to set your whole farm up on this model. Find those things that you are eating a lot of and say, all right, I eat spinach. For me, we started with spinach. I eat spinach every single day of the week, multiple times a day, 365 days a year. It is one of those staples for me. So we knew I needed to be growing spinach as much as I could for as long as possible. And so I would bi-weekly. I started bi-weekly starting my spinach. At the time, I didn't quite realize how to flip beds appropriately. And so I wasn't comfortable with every single week having a seeding going on. But then when I realized when I needed to prep my beds, when I needed to transplant out and start again, and got in that flow, now we bumped it up every single week. We're starting spinach and we're transplanting it, and we're never, you don't have to have abundant space to be able to implement succession sowing, because by the time you've got your whole bed and you're planting out your last, say maybe your 5th, you know, transplant, you've already harvested from the first one. There's already space there to reseed again. And you're just keep going through and you're harvesting, you're going back and you're transplanting. You know what I mean? You just kind of keep this cycle running. And so try a few varieties. I found that spinach and lettuce are really, really easy varieties to succession sow. If maybe you just have a flower garden, you can implement all of that as well. Zinnias are a great one to succession sow. We are transplanting out sunflowers on a weekly basis. And so there's a lot of different things, especially if you're growing these single cut sunflowers. You know, they're not gonna, it's not a cut and come again, and so once you harvest them, they're done. We just do them in these nice little grids, and it works out really well. So I hope you all will join me May 7th, 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. The link to sign up down below. It is a free webinar. It does not cost you anything. It does not cost you anything to set up your free seed time account either, so you can't access this for that. Again, there is a paid for version that has a lot of other special things. If you are interested in that, you can certainly do that. But you can start getting, you know, started on this right away. And I do think having the webinar is going to be helpful just because it walks you through how to best utilize it. I know that I needed someone to do that for me. And I think it's just going to be super beneficial. So I want to not only be growing food year round and showing you guys my abundant tunnels and gardens in the winter, I want you to also be tapping into this to access, you know, seasonal eating, year-round growing. You'd be surprised. Like, we grow just as much in the winter time as we do in the summer times. We're changing what we're eating, right? We're eating more brassicas, we're eating more broccolis and cauliflowers. We're having a lot of different soups and things like that. We're not eating those fresh cucumbers or tomatoes, but we're still eating. And once you've adapted to seasonal eating, then you appreciate those rotations in the seasons. You appreciate that, all right, I can lay down the cucumber for a little bit. So I do think this is just going to set you guys up for success. And ultimately, I want to just share with you what I'm doing. I told you my goal for this year is to teach backyard growers professional techniques. And this is a planning calendar that a lot of market gardeners and professional growers are using that you can also implement in your backyard gardens and just see success. So I hope you guys will join me. It was such a joy hanging out with you guys while I seeded. I've got a couple more 100 of these to do, so I'm going to get busy, but thank you all for hanging out with me. I'll talk to you soon.